Hey, this is Mike Robbins here. Thanks for joining me for this video. I often get asked the question, what are some good team building activities that I can do with my team? You know, for the last 18 years, I've had my consulting business and I've traveled around the US and around the world working with and talking to teams and leaders about how they can build more collaboration, more trust, more engagement, more performance for their teams. And oftentimes I'm brought in to speak at or facilitate sessions at team building events. So I have some experience with this, and I want to share a few things that you can do with your team that can allow your team to come together more effectively. Now, one of the things that I often get asked when I'll be on the phone with a client, or they'll be talking about me coming in and doing a session or working with their team in a team building context, they'll say something like, Mike, we're not gonna sit around and hold hands and sing Kumbaya, are we? And my response is usually, no, we're not gonna do that. But I tell you what, if you could get a team of people that was close enough with each other and trusted each other enough and it was safe enough where you could actually hold hands and sing Kumbaya, that would be a really effective team. But that said, that's not what we're gonna do, and it's not what I necessarily recommend. There's three things that I recommend that you can do. The first thing that's important to do is get your team together in person outside of the office. Now, this is often easier said than done. Sometimes teams I work with are spread out all over the country, even around the world. So logistically, the cost, the time of getting everyone in the same place can be challenging, and you got to work that out in whatever way you can. But even if you get everyone together, there's a difference between having a meeting on site and a meeting off-site. Both are effective for different reasons, and a lot of times we got to meet on-site because just like we have weekly meetings or staff meetings or team meetings, or sometimes I'll even see though companies will fly everyone in to their headquarters or to some office somewhere, and then they meet in a conference room on-site, which isn't terrible, but something changes when we move off-site. Even if we go down the street to a hotel or to a restaurant, but especially if we can get out of the normal environment, it puts us in a different state of mind. So the first thing you can do from a practical team building standpoint is get the team together physically and go somewhere off-site, even if it's something relatively simple or easy. The second thing is you gotta create an environment where people can actually speak up and talk about what's going on. You know, one of the simple exercises that I do, so often if I come in, let's say I have a senior or executive leadership team that has an offsite, sometimes they'll bring me in to facilitate the whole thing. Oftentimes I come in and do a segment. Maybe I do a 2-hour or 4-hour, even an all-day session with the team. And maybe I've worked with them before, and maybe we've had some relationship, or maybe it's my first time interacting with them. But whatever the case is, one of the very first things that I do after I kind of set some context, maybe I'll tell a story and introduce myself, especially if they don't know me that well. I'll talk a bit about my sports background. You know, I played baseball in college and then played professionally before I got injured, but basically spent 18 of the first 25 years of my life as a baseball player. So spent a lot of times on teams, and then worked for a few years in the tech world and learned a bit about teamwork in the business world and realized there was a lot of similarities between sports and business, which is what had me start my consulting business 18 years ago. So once I set some context, what I'll often have them do in a really simple activity is just go around the table and kind of check in, is what I like to call it. I may or may not even call it that out loud to them, but really, you know, if I don't know them, I'll ask them to say their name and their role and kind of what they do, but anything they want to get out of the session, or maybe even just kind of how they're doing or how they're feeling. Sometimes I'm working with a team and they've just gone through a major reorganization, or there's been an acquisition, or there's a new leader, or they're different people, or they've just gone through, you know, the quarter's been intense. You know, offsites often come after something big has happened, or at least in some sort of iteration throughout the year when we can take a breath, if you will. But having everyone, it kind of creates a little bit of a level playing field, even to start the session. There's a series of other exercises that I'll often do to try to get people to lower the waterline on the iceberg, as I like to say. But just getting people to talk, to open up, to share a little bit about what's going on, both in their lives, but at work, how they're feeling, what they're thinking, and allowing it to be somewhat egalitarian in the sense that I go around the table and everyone gets to talk. I don't start with the leader necessarily. Everyone gets to talk, and while one person's talking, we're all listening. So then we go around, and by the time we've gone around just that first time, now we're sort of a little bit more connected, people are a little bit more present, and throughout the session, I'm often asking questions in which, sometimes it's popcorn style sharing, but I like to do that go around the table thing because it forces everybody, even the people that don't tend to speak up, they have to speak up a bit, but it also forces the people who do tend to dominate the conversation to have to hold back a little bit and actually listen so everyone's voice gets heard. And the third thing that's a very specific activity that's one of my favorite activities to do with teams. And if you've read my book, Bring Your Whole Self to Work, you know because I go into detail with this particular activity and exercise. Or if you've ever worked with me and you've brought me in to work with your team, we've probably done this exercise. It's called the appreciation seat exercise. So one of the key tenets of my work and one of the driving factors in strong teams is appreciation. And I talk about this really simple distinction between recognition, which is about performance, and appreciation, which is about people. Recognition's about what we do, appreciation's about who we are. So once I've set that up and talked a little bit about that concept or that distinction, I open up this conversation and say, we're gonna go around now and have an opportunity to give some appreciation to the people on our team and also receive some appreciation from the people on our team. Now, one of the critical elements of this is most of us are terrible at receiving appreciation from other human beings. Have you noticed? Usually we do something where we blow it off or we give them a compliment right back so as to not really receive it. But my coaching to the group is just when someone expresses some appreciation for you, your job is to just say thank you and let it in. So we again go around the table, but when it's each person's turn, they don't have to say anything. It's their turn to be on what I call the appreciation seat. Now, usually to make it equal and even, and because for time purposes, I will usually use my phone that has a timer on it, and I'll put, say, 2 minutes or 3 minutes on the timer. And I'll say, okay, we're gonna start with Susie. And when it's Susie's turn to be on the appreciation seat, as many of us as feel moved to in the amount of time that we have, we're going to express some appreciation for Susie. Let her know what we appreciate about her, what we value about her, what we want to thank her for, just who is she for us? How do we feel about her, if you will? And what usually happens is at first people are a little awkward, a little uncomfortable, they're not really sure, it's a vulnerable thing to do. And Susie gets a little weird and I have to usually coach people through it a little bit just to make sure. But people start to say, Susie, I really appreciate this about you or this quality or this value or thank you for that time. And they have stories of when Susie really helped them out or it's simple, but it's powerful. And then oftentimes, at first, again, people are a little nervous, but we'll go, and not every single person on the team has to say something about Susie because usually we don't have enough time for everyone to go, but sometimes people will want to, and then the timer will go off on my phone and then we'll go to the next person. And then again, say the next person is Joe, and then we all spend some time telling Joe what we think, and expressing our appreciation. What do we value about Joe? What do we want to thank Joe for? And Joe has to just sit there, and I say to the person receiving appreciation, just breathe, listen to what they say, receive it. Please don't make a joke or blow it off or turn it in. It's like your job is to actually just say nothing or maybe thank you, but that's it, and just receive the appreciation. And then we'll go to the next person, say Maria, and then the next person, Raphael, and then the next person, Jose, and then the next person, Anne, and then whoever, all around the table. Each person has their time, their 2 or their 3 minutes, whatever it is. Oftentimes what happens, especially as we move through the exercise, the timer goes off and people start yelling at me, no, we need more time, or I want to go, or I have more to say, and it's like I have to manage it. I have sat with teams of 10 people and done that exercise, no kidding, for an hour and 45 minutes. They'll just say, turn off the timer, we're all going, and we don't care, and we don't care if we have to wait to go to dinner. It's amazing what can happen. I was with an executive leadership team who I've worked with before in the past, and we did this exercise. And we'd done it before, so I wasn't even sure. This was the 3rd year in a row I'd been at their annual retreat, and I wasn't even sure if they wanted to do it or not again, because I love to do it all the time, but sometimes, again, you got to feel out the group and does it feel right? And they demanded that we do it on the final day of their offsite, which I was happy to do, even though we had other things to cover. And one of their team members had to leave early because there was something going on in his family, and he left, and they were really bummed that he wasn't going to get his time on the appreciation seat. And one of the executives on the team said, hold on, I got an idea. Let me videotape everybody. So she videoed everyone on her phone and went around, and they each got to say to Chris what they appreciated about him. Specifically, personally, just like he was sitting in the room and had his time on the appreciation seat, and she's like, I'll send him the video. And she was able to do that. So think about these three things specifically with your team, with your group. Can you get everyone together in the same physical location? And if you do, can you take them offsite out of the office, at least for a bit of time? That will change the dynamic, the vibe, the connection, the conversation. Secondly, can you create a safe space when you're together as a team in whatever you're doing where people can actually open up and share, lower their waterline on the iceberg a bit, and give people equal opportunity to speak, to share their thoughts, their ideas, and make it so that we really listen to each other. And then the third thing is, can you do the appreciation seat exercise and set it up so people get an opportunity to actually express appreciation for each other? These three things can be incredibly impactful and powerful for you and for your team. And they're great things that you can do as team building activities or exercises to really strengthen and empower your team to produce the kind of results you want to produce and do the things you ultimately want to do. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. I look forward to connecting with you again in this way and in other ways.